bilingualism exactly as its prevailing aim. So they refer as specific for CLIL, for example, code switching pedagogy as Girlinger, translanguaging pedagogy as San Isidro, and so on. But we have also collected by Ana Jimeno this perception of teachers. The CLIL methodology is useful to improve the students' motivation in learning because it involves the use of different means of communication, and it integrates a wide variety of pedagogical methodologies. So, a previous systematic literature review done by us focused on judgments of teachers and researchers together, and it highlighted a great need of pedagogical foundation, and then specifically on pedagogies and didactics for CLIL. This is also to remind that CLIL should adapt itself to various and to different contexts. Indeed, if I have to implement CLIL for a micro-teaching, it is quite different from, for example, the adoption at university for an entire course. So this means that CLIL needs flexibility on pedagogies. And on the other side, we should remind that the awareness of different pedagogies should be lead to different tools and different strategies founded in them. We know that content and language integrated learning was created with the original aim of achieving bilingualism or better plurilingualism, together with the content of one or more subjects in formal European education. Nevertheless, it can be said that it points to an open and meaningful environment of education, which through this original objective has proven to be beneficial for the holistic development of students. They have to reach higher order thinking skills and thus work with cross-cutting themes, which leads to other competencies such as learning to learn, cooperation with peers, in a word, to 21st century skills achievement. All these characteristics are grounded in social constructivism, which is recognized at the base of CLIL, and which is the pedagogy most known in all European CLIL context. The distinctive feature of befocused CLIL is certainly the use of strategies which support effective learning in terms both of content and languages, which are based on pedagogies and linguistic approaches together, especially pedagogies which include this linguistic dimension itself as crucial, such as social constructivism. Nevertheless, until recently, research on CLIL has been largely focused on linguistics, while a deeper awareness of the pedagogical dimension, which founds didactics, gives teaching the key to a variety of approaches and strategies to engage different students in different CLIL implementations. In the literature, we have, as I said, primarily social constructivism, but we have to say that competency-based forms the basis of CLIL for various aspects. First of all, planning and evaluating, given that the subject discipline seems to influence the pedagogical approaches teacher report using. Genre-based pedagogy was born from social constructivism, and it is based on cognitive educational approaches such as systemic functional linguistics, for which context become linguistically and functionally crucial in the process of content and words meaning making of students, who are involved by teachers in several educational activities in group of discussion for the negotiation of meanings, from readings to autonomous writings. The same pluriliteracies model for CLIL was born from this genre pedagogy, thanks to its focus on the different specific literacy in each subject, which aims at in-depth and holistic academic learning of students based on the specific language. We can report the speech of Holiday, who said that learning language and learning through language are just one integrated process, namely learning. At the same time, social constructivism has generated a pragmatic version of itself, which is the phenomenon-based learning focused by David Marsh. And it is a more transversal inquiry learning, so based on theory and learning by doing together across the subjects of the student's curriculum. On the other hand, the concept of culture, specifically related to CLIL teaching and linked to the awareness that the learning process necessarily involves social, emotional, and metacognitive needs, led to the transformative pedagogy that employs collaborative critical inquiry and aims at a greater inclusivity in schools, starting from a cultural awareness and respect for different cultures. Strategies such as code switching and translanguaging adopted by CLIL derive from this pedagogy. This pedagogy, which involves teachers as practitioners, researchers, as well as their students, so they are understood as whole persons with an identity as critical and intercultural target language users. They are all guided in their praxis, so in their modification of reality in taking critical decisions, by moral values which are deeply culture informed, but with a pretension of interculturality as a wide citizenship, thanks to the dynamic nature of culture. So, apart from phenomenon-based learning, whose results within CLIL were not available for CLIL yet, the others were used in a short teacher training of 12 hours, together with the more widely used linguistic approaches, such as direct, communicative with its situational and notional functional methods, and affective humanistic, but also in a less measure, structuralist, and they were applied in 3 secondary schools in Italy, which involved 15 teachers, 8 of foreign languages and 7 of history, who implemented these pedagogies together with linguistic approaches in 8 their classrooms, so with 166 students. The aim was to observe their implementation and what kind of use they did of these pedagogies and linguistic approaches. So, it is to say that they were mostly inexperienced CLIL teachers. So, we had to train them, but also to give them a stronger support with a scheme of strategies and outcomes they could obtain, linking pedagogies and linguistic approaches, giving them an overall scheme of the linguistic outcomes per linguistic approaches and the strategies they could obtain through pedagogies and linguistic approaches together. So they used it, and we couldn't have clear-cut answers because they are not in the literature as well about how students can achieve linguistic outcomes in CLIL classes through pedagogies. It depends, we all know, on teachers' choices and prior training, on students' attitudes and learning styles, on skills and relationships which are created in the classrooms. But we have to say that this merging of pedagogies and linguistic approaches seems to offer other possibilities in very concrete terms. Indeed, it is certainly different to put into practice different actions, different implementation of CLIL, but more importantly, any pedagogy can suggest proper strategies, bearing in mind that language and content for CLIL aim leads to students acquiring mainly cognitive skills other than linguistical skills. So, the premise for the present results is that the majority of teachers had no experience in this field, so that especially the management of the methods could not yet appear in depth and showed some errors of their learning by doing in their initial phase. But we can affirm that most teachers chose genre pedagogy as a more precise response to specific history literacy and its attention, and thanks to its attention to academic vocabulary. Almost the same number of teachers used social constructivism, from which genre is derived, as we saw, and shared with it many aspects at the base of CLIL, such as the collaborative text-based approach, scaffolding, and so on. And they may underscore their greater focus on language and which is clear that was adopted mainly by foreign language teachers, as in this project. Transformative pedagogy was definitely used less than the previous, probably because it does not allow the interference of teacher-centered approaches, whereas those previous can be adopted gradually, especially in the design of tasks. And finally, cooperative methods, competency-based, were not applied alone. And the assessment of the competencies involved in the students' final tasks proved to be difficult for teachers. As for linguistic approaches, the communicative approach, especially for the notional functional methods, was highly adopted. Only one of the 10 teachers who opted for it preferred the situational one. And this is in line with the prevalence of genre pedagogy, which emphasizes the importance of communicative functions to reach communicative achievements in different contexts, such as different genres for different subjects. This is also confirmed by the use of role-playing as the most used technique. On the other hand, transformative seemed to be associated by teachers with the adoption of affective humanistic approach. And it is something to be deepened more for CLIL. But what clearly emerges is that teachers tend to use more than one pedagogy in their experience, and also linguistic approaches, albeit to a lesser extent. For instance, the transformative was used exclusively by only one teacher, at other times alternating it with genre in the same classroom for different projects, or together with competency-based, with which it shares the importance of evaluating the acquisition of transversal skills, and finally, with social constructivism to deepen the pluricultural dimension of the topics through plurilingualism in the classroom. The limits of this study are, for sure, in adopting a short implementation for them. They implemented for 16 hours each one. So it is a limited educational experience, which is to be repeated to acquire a relevance. And also in the fact that they were mostly inexperienced in CLIL. Finally, we have adopted only 4 pedagogies for CLIL, those in the literature, but the experience could be repeated with other pedagogies, always student-centered. The conclusions are that CLIL showed to be an open environment for an integration of diverse pedagogies as opportunities for teachers, which enhances students' motivation. And this environment is open to the embedding of different linguistic approaches and pedagogies. So we can't say CLIL pedagogy, which enrich it of authentic opportunities for teaching and learning, far from adopting a single pedagogy. Even though social constructivism clearly appears at the moment the CLIL route. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.